but the information was missing. And if they'd have been more open and allowed some mistakes to be found by each other, if they'd have talked to each other, they could have got the software, it wasn't software actually, but they could have got the project started, and much earlier and much more successfully. There was an example of this, customer collaboration. I was at an Ecosi meeting, and somebody from, a world expert really, from engineering construction. They built huge things like dams and power station oil platforms, often in countries very far away. And he had a project management technique that allowed him to very accurately predict whether the project was going to be late or not by examining the use of resources. How much resources had they used so far? And it proved to be very accurate. But at the end of the project, multi-million European projects. At the end of the project, the customer said, that isn't actually what we expected. That's not what we wanted. So he concentrated on the project management, but delivered something completely unacceptable to the customer. And I said, how could this happen? How could you not have at an early stage a common understanding of the requirements? And he said, well, they were very far away, and to save money, we never visited them. No collaboration at all, just throwing things over a wall. There's also another company in the finance industry. We tried to help these people with requirements, and they had internal customers. Every department was a customer for the next as things were passed along the chain. They had a customer-supplier relationship. And I'll show you their process. Here's a requirements document. Okay? And this was thrown over the wall to the next department. Who did something to it, and of course threw it over the next wall. I asked about quality criteria, and said, oh yes, we do that. Our quality is measured in how much time we waste writing requirements. So I tried to get the idea of a review into this company. Now that would involve talking to people, and it would take time. If I take more than 3 days, my colleagues would think I'm incompetent. So no, we don't do that. And the chain was so long, that by the time the software was rolled out and tested, they had no idea whether it was acceptable or not. And there was a person at the end of the chain who had the trouble, and these were quite successful because sometimes they wrote whole specifications in 3 days, showing how good they were. So this is the opposite of collaboration. You absolutely need to talk to each other. We still need contracts, we still need to protect ourselves, but we need to get there in a collaborative way. We talk about fixed price contracts. And there are still many of our customers, for instance government departments, that want a fixed price contract. And referring back to Susanna Mühlbauer, who gave a very good talk this week, and she's giving a workshop tomorrow, I believe. She's a senior consultant in the Hood Group. I agree with her totally that with a fixed price contract, you will be working iteratively. You will be making changes. The difference is to planning to make changes at the beginning, you will be surprised by the changes. You think it's a fixed price contract, but you will pay the supplier for the changes. The price isn't fixed. If you plan from the beginning to be delivering iterations, or what we 20 years ago called releases, if you give many releases, give early releases, produce prototypes, you can find out at an early stage if the requirements are correct, if you've actually understood each other properly. I think this is the biggest challenge the biggest challenge that I've come across is actually, how do you price a contract when you don't yet know what it has to be done, what has to be done. I gave a talk to the Institute of Project Managers, and I asked this question: who on earth can know how much a project will cost and how long it will last, what is the duration, before you know what is required? Who has this ability? Sales, of course. And thank goodness we have a buffer at the end of the project plan, which we call testing. So we can take up the slack with this. Unfortunately, there's no clock in here, so I have to keep looking down here. How long have I got? I've forgotten what time I finish. It's about 9 o'clock finish, isn't it? Yeah. Right. Responding to change over following a plan. Worked on a project in Britain. It was in the mid-80s, I guess. And what people often call structured analysis was very popular and very successful. And the supplier for the software for this project, it was a factory upgrade of around about £140 million in the mid-80s. Very, very big project. And for this we used Europe's largest software house to write the software for us, industrial grade software. Controlling factories, many factories, the factories communicating over networks based on the telephone network, killer streams and mega streams and things like this. So it's a big project, lots of coordination to do, many, many hundreds of computers on the network, all sorts of coordination to do. And it was lovely. We didn't have very sophisticated tools in those days. And by the time I got to the project, it was already getting quite late. Then somebody had the idea of the virtual year. If a date, you probably can't see that at the back. If a date was due to be, something was due to be finished in 1986, maybe September 1986 it was due to be finished. It was getting so late and all of the project plans were out of date. Somebody, fantastic innovation, said, well, let's have a virtual year. We'll call this 87, okay? So suddenly, we didn't have to redo the project plans. We were ahead of schedule. It was working incredibly well. And on this project, eventually the software was delivered. Obviously in one hit. Why do releases? Why try and get things done in an iterative way? So all of the software arrived at the same time. That was it. Here is your software in one lump. And it has been tested. But it doesn't work. And this largest software house in Europe had looked at the contract and they say, we are responsible for writing the software and for testing it. Nowhere does it say that it has to work. Getting back to the testing example, pass and fail is good. Tested, not a good idea. Okay? For the same company, they were waiting for an answer. Huge amount of software to do, many subsystems, many parts to it. When they sent me a bill, I was a project manager, they sent me an invoice for 4 days waiting time for 40 people. They said, but we were waiting for your answer. I said, well, you already sent it to me on Monday.